introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm delighted to be here today with Glenn Mandziuk, Chief Executive Officer from the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. And in 2022, the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance launched the Pathway to Net Positive Hospitality, which is a framework designed to enable hospitality businesses around the world to give back more to the environment, the economy, and the people than they actually take out. And in May this year, you launched a strategy which sets out the ambitions to achieve that vision. So, Glenn, it's a pleasure to have you here today. So for many, the concept of going beyond net zero to becoming net positive is a daunting goal. So how can a hotel transition from simply minimizing its footprint on the environment, society, and the economy to actually having a positive impact?
It's a great question. And it's certainly a bold ambition, quite frankly. You know, I was fortunate. I joined the Alliance just over a year ago. And what really attracted me to the Alliance was this notion that was developed by the members. And I will say the members of the Alliance, you know, we're nearing 50% of the global footprint in terms of the number of rooms as part of the Alliance. And a lot of the global brands that you see and have been very engaged in this summit are part of the Alliance and the discussion. So this bold ambition around net positive was really taken because we needed to stand for something much greater than simply sustainability. We had to talk about this because other economic sectors, quite frankly, have been more bolder in its approach and more noticed quite in being seen as more sustainable, whether that's right or wrong. And so we have a strong North Star. We want to be seen as a contributor to society, to the environment, to the people, and to the community for which we have the privilege to operate within. So within that context, the Alliance, and together with all its members, worked on a pathway, step-by-step pathway in order to get there, with a set of tools to support that, whether it be your carbon measurement tools, your waste and water tools that become the universal set of tools in order for that to measure progress. Because if we don't have a universal set of tools to measure that progress, it's impossible to actually showcase that we as an industry are making progress. So within that, we have developed a set of examples and cases together with the work of specific frameworks to get there. We've also developed a business simulator that goes with that really takes away the academic exercise of that makes it much more approachable. So that you could see and plug in certain elements and you can understand your decisions on how that affects your bottom line, your CO2 emissions, your social agenda initiatives. So we want to make it as much engaging as possible, but it is a bold approach because we want to showcase that this industry is taking it seriously. And I will say this because I've had the opportunity over this past year to meet with a lot of people outside the industry. And they say to me, and this is mainly from the financial markets, that they don't believe we're taking this seriously, this idea of sustainability. They don't believe that, and as a result, they're putting their money elsewhere. So we need to change the conversation, and Net Positive provides that framework to do that.
So is that kind of then follow on with collaboration in terms of changing the industry? Collaboration is key, presumably then within the hospitality industry, and as well as within the industry itself, should we be looking outside of the industry and learning from other industries about how they're advancing in the sustainability sphere as well?
Yeah, it's really important that, you know, each company has their own approach to sustainability, and that's really important, our own strategy. But there are elements that we need to do as a collective and not as an individual in order for us to succeed. And that's where the Alliance really plays its key role, is really tackling those human rights issues that we need to take on in a very big way. And obviously, when it comes to measuring progress, the Alliance can play a big role as that. And also, even getting to the place where group purchasing of green product can drive price down because of scale. And that's a great opportunity for the industry to really take advantage of. An example would be partnered power agreements, for example. You know, we're looking at a common PPA for the industry that then they can purchase green energy off the grid and really work in a very significant way to decarbonize their overall footprint. They can't do that individually, but at scale, you can. And so these were the opportunities really drive collaboration. And then with your other point about talking outside ourselves, I mean, we have partnered with many organizations, and over the course of the year, we've formalized our relationships with over 40 key organizations, from World Travel and Tourism Council to the UN, to GBTA, to GSTC, acronym soup. But all these organizations were out there doing sustainability in pockets. By doing that, obviously, and I believe we're just wasting time. We have to do this as a collaborative effort and learn from each other in order to move forward. And one of the partnerships we formalize is with the Sustainable Markets Initiative. And it's an organization made up of the CEOs of all the other economic sectors, whether it be healthcare industry, to transportation, to the banking industry, insurance. They're all talking about this too. We are at the table as the hospitality industry, connecting with all those other CEOs to talk about this. And an example, the healthcare industry. They have the same issues in the hospitals that we do in hospitality, whether it be measuring carbon or water or waste, or they're attracting employees. The only difference is how the customer came to the front door. And so there's a real opportunity to learn from each other to really catalyze change. Otherwise, we're talking to ourselves a little bit too much, and we need to really talk outside ourselves in order to advance as an industry, and that's where that comes into play.
Fantastic, yeah, lots of valuable lessons to be learned from outside the hospitality industry, absolutely. Yeah. And how, in terms of, obviously, the strategy that you've launched is a global strategy, there's global objectives. How does it translate at the local level? How can any business, regardless of the size of it or how advanced they are on their sustainability journey, how can they take that strategy and implement it at asset level?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the pathway itself, I really encourage you to approach it. We are a global charity as an organization, so the tools and resources that we create within the Alliance are available to everyone. And so it's very approachable, and it starts with the WTTC's Basics initiative and leads you all the way through to the end of a net positive approach. So we provide those tools and resources to get there. And I think that's really where we have to provide that. Together with, we're working with a lot of the hotel associations in the community. We really feel that, obviously, the ones that are, individual membership within the hotel associations in their respective jurisdictions, we make those connections, we white label products, we help the local hotel association really connect and communicate. And with the launch of our strategy in May of this year, we've also recognized the need for local chapters of the conversation of sustainability. And we're working to set one up right here in this region. We've already started the progress of doing that and the process of doing that, and so we will be doing that over the course of this year.
Fantastic. And that kind of then leads on to the next part then, I suppose, in terms of net positive, how replicable is it between different regions, and how would it specifically translate, for example, in a region like the Middle East, where there's certain environmental pressures such as water scarcity? Is it possible for a business to be net positive in a region with environmental pressures such as that?
Absolutely. And net positive covers a wide range of issues, not just environmental, but social as well. And so you can be net positive in each of these areas. There's no one company I can point out to that's going to be in a net positive position in all the categories at this point. There are pockets, though, of companies that are doing some very proactive, positive things that are seen as contributory back to whether it be contributing to coral reefs that we talk about, or hiring practice, and hiring people with disadvantages that for the community that they can actually contribute. So that puts you in a net positive position. So there are ways to do this depending on scale. There is no one size fits all. But one of the areas that we do from a water scarcity perspective is we as an alliance have done a global water risk index. We measure 367 destinations globally across this. We report annually to the UN, WTO, and the United Nations directly. and talk about our commitment to water. Because it's interesting, hotels tend to use 8 times more water than a local resident. So we need to actually take that a lot more seriously as to how do we use the latest technology that doesn't diminish the guest experience, but does serve to reduce the water consumption and be seen again as not this extractor. There's too many examples of where we're seen in a negative light when it comes to this, which exposes our industry to risk, both from maybe somebody's going to burn the building down, from the local community perspective, which has happened would happen in some places, but to your reputational risk. How are you seen? So there's opportunities that you need to, and we've taken a lot of steps around that. And this particular area, we've noted that water risk is a high issue.
There's always something that can be done.
Yeah,
absolutely. And in terms of, obviously today here we've got a lot of asset owners and investors. What would you say how would you convince them to adopt a net positive approach? What are the economic benefits to being net positive?
Well, I'm sure that's been talked about over the course of the last couple of days already. And the regulators are very much coming down on this, looking at the importance of sustainability and the importance of adopting that within the strategy. We know the investor community, banking industry are really seeing investables. They're parking their money in other places if you don't take sustainability seriously and build it within your business strategy. We're also seeing it, of course, the community is demanding it. Again, the community is noting, the Oxford Dictionary word of the year in 2018 was over-tourism. That was a significant impact to the brand of tourism in communities, and we were starting to see that negative approach from communities. And I quite frankly start to see it happening again if we don't start looking at the costs of growth, and that's where that was coming in. Certainly the consumer, we talk a lot about the consumer. The consumer is certainly looking at sustainability much higher than it ever has before. And what's different here is there's a willingness to pay for it. I remember, 10 years ago, you would have said, yeah, this is important. But they would pat me on the head and say, Glenn, yes, but they're not willing to pay for it. Well, that has certainly changed. That has changed significantly, and particularly in the luxury market. Certainly, I think there's a level of guilt there for the customer, and they're willing, but they cannot be greenwashed. If you're just up in price and you're not actually delivering the message, then you're gonna lose. But I think the most important element to this is the employee of the future. And we noticed, we're looking at growth. We've heard a lot of presentations over the last day or two here about growth and development. But how are we actually going to staff these buildings? And I dare say that the employee of the future, the young person right now, is expecting those companies to have a higher purpose. The cleaning staff in this hotel are not just making a bed for me to sleep in it. They actually want to feel that they're contributing to a much higher purpose. And sustainability offers that opportunity to do that and showcase that. The key here is they know how the butter is bred, or basically how the sausage is made. And if the companies don't actually live up to what the message is, they will move on. And that's an important element that we can see happen from sustainability. So there's so many wide range benefits now from a financial perspective that sustainability brings to the table.
Absolutely, and I think research has definitely found as well that hotels with a strong ESG performance also have employees that are more productive, more motivated, and like you say, you can retain your staff better. So there are other commercial benefits other than just the financial cost savings of implementing sustainability. Absolutely. Yeah. And then in terms of the strategy that you've got, so you have industry-wide metrics, and one of the goals in the strategy is to develop industry-wide metrics that can streamline reporting. So what do you find, what do you see are the challenges for implementing sustainability metrics on a global level and making those consistent?
Well, when we engage the industry through this a year-long process to develop this strategy, to really focus what are the core issues and what are some of the solutions we need to tackle, measuring the progress of the industry was by far the number one issue. So many different areas are coming on the industry to ask them to measure, and it's causing significant problem. We need to harmonize that, and we've worked very hard at looking at the metrics around carbon, water, waste, and then this whole social notion, and how do we measure progress in that regard? And it's kind of the Wild West in that segment. So one of the things we need to do is, if we don't do that, we're not going to actually showcase that the industry's making progress. And we go back to this, are we wasting time? So the problem we have is the fragmentation of the industry to get to this harmonization between asset owners, companies, different agencies that are expecting these results, whether it be taxonomy, governmental regulators, or others. And so we are pulling together all the players to really identify and harmonize those metrics. And that's a commitment we have made as an alliance as the number one objective.
It's a challenge, but
it's a huge challenge. But it can be done because we have a critical mass of companies that are engaged in the conversation right now. So it's important that we keep that critical mass together, not only within the companies, but within all those other partners I mentioned, those other 40 organizations that need to bring and contribute to that. Before, that wasn't the common approach. We didn't have that approach. It was people doing it individually. By changing that, it'll help us accelerate to get to that. And we will get to a cornerstone. We're not going to get a common set of metrics, 50 metrics. We're probably going to just focus on 4 or 5. But those 4 or 5 will be critical to measuring our progress, which again will go back to sending the market signal that this industry is in fact taking this seriously, and we're measuring that progress over time and telling the world about it at the same time.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. I think that's all we've got time for now, Glenn, actually. But it's a pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you so much.
It's indeed an honor to be here. It's my first time to this beautiful part of the world, and I'm very honored to be here as part of the Future Hospitality Summit. So thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. We're honored to have you here too, so thank you. And thanks to Lizzy too. Rounds of applause.